was a very, very privileged high school in Austin, one of the wealthiest schools in all of Texas. And I kind of joked that I was the girl from the other side of the tracks, right? Which, getting up on stage now, it feels like it's not that big a deal because it's one of those things like, now I get to talk about it, and that was then and this is now. But I just came from Drake Middle School. How many of you went to Drake Middle School? Grace did. Yeah, she did. Scott, right? And I was having a conversation with middle school girls, and I have like a heart for these little girls, right? Like 11, 12, 13. Like that age, man, we are so mean to each other. It's unbelievable. It's like legit warfare at that age, right? Like you're just trying to survive. From a standpoint, having done a lot of research about that age specifically, when we're growing up, is all you want to do is fit in. That's all you want. Like that is your mechanism, your survival mechanism at that age is just to fit in. And going to a very, very wealthy school and having one of my best friends, his dad was the VP of Dell, so they had like a multi-zillion-dollar house and they had like maids and like brand new Porsches and all these things. And we lived in a fourplex. And I lived in Cuernavaca, right? Probably means nothing to you. But for me, when someone asked me, so where are you from? And I say Cuernavaca, they kind of like this, oh. I'd be like, yeah, whatever. Oh, word. Right? Because there's always that like split second when they're like, oh, you live there. And it was a huge insecurity for me. Because I never felt like I fit in. And the one time that I missed a school bus ever, right? My mom drove a 1976 jaundice color Malibu. The most hideous car anyone's ever seen in their entire life. Not to mention, like, it was wrecked, okay? So, like, insult to injury. It's like you couldn't even open the door, so I had to, like, crawl in to get in. Like, super ghetto. Not cool. So I remember, like, one time I missed the bus, and my mom came and she was like, no, Rachel, I'll just try to get to school. And I was like, no! Anything but, like, my friends see me in this car. And I lied about where I lived, and I had people drop me off a mile or 2 miles away from my house so that they wouldn't see it. So it was a thing, right? And in that time of your life, you're just wanting to fit in, and recognizing now that I'm older, we all have that thing. Because if you're not too rich, you're too poor. Too skinny, too fat. Too smart, too dumb. We all have that label, that thing that when we're younger, we take on as an insecurity. And then we try to overcompensate for. And then you have the world, right? You have this world, this great big world, this media mechanism feeding us from the time that we're born these messages. If only you have, then you'll be happy. I bought into it, right? And I remember that moment recognizing that discrepancy between the haves and the have-nots. And the first time I recognized it, there was a legit challenge to what I wanted to do in my life. And I remember coming home and like making this like huge, like throwing a fit, right? And like slamming drawers and like just in case my parents didn't know, they totally busted my bubble of excitement. And my mom comes walking in, she sits on the edge of the couch and she's like, sweetheart, I don't think that you understood your father. You know when you're like throwing a fit and it's like, I understood him. He's telling me I can't make my dreams come true. No, I know. She's like, no. He never said that you can't make your dreams come true. He said that we could. And there's a big difference between the two. Because if you want it bad enough, I don't know what that is for you right now, but if you want it bad enough, the question you have to ask yourself is what sacrifices are you willing to make for it? I find it ironic that our generation is criticized for being the most entitled generation that's ever existed. So that's how we're talking about behind our back generation, why not? We just think that we're entitled to everything. I think that's the best problem you could ever have. You have a generation of kids who actually think that they can change the world. You have a generation of people who actually believe that their voice makes a difference. We're inside, and I remember like ripping open an envelope and sitting there, my hands were shaking, and it said, Alexis Jones, congratulations, you've been accepted to the University of Southern California. And due to your excellent academic achievement, we're going to grant you a scholarship to attend. Gotta be kidding me, right? To me, that was the first time in my entire life, at 17 years old, that I unapologetically stood on my own 2 feet and said that I earned that. Every ounce of that. That I worked hard enough and earned the right to my dreams. That is a very different conversation than people feeling entitled to their dreams. But again, I had this checklist, right? This is how messed up my brain was. So I'm thinking, along with Eminem, that we are going to go to LA and make our dreams come true. I get it, right? I'm getting outside of my life, like I don't have to put up with this anymore. I'm going to get outside of Cuernavaca, where everybody knows that my mom drives a 1976 jaundice color Malibu, and I'm going to go to LA and make these dreams come true according to I don't know who. So I move out to Los Angeles, and I start modeling, right? Because that's part of the dream, right? Is if you're famous and you're beautiful and you're rich, well then you're happy. That's what we're being told. I go out there and I'm making all these dreams come true. I'm modeling thinking that that's making me really important. Before you know it, I'm hosting a TV show on the red carpet. Right? So systematically, I am like slaying these things. I'm like, sweet, so I have to be beautiful? I can do that. So I have to be famous? Sweet, I can do that too. Right? Then I started dating the Abercrombie model. Add that in there because that guy's smoking hot. Right? And like, you're stoked when you show up to the party. You're like, that guy is my boyfriend. I remember the first time I walked in the store and there were these 2, 3 little girls in there and they're like, oh my God, that guy's so hot. Like pointing to the wall. And my friend looks over and she's like, no, seriously, that's her boyfriend. I was like, no, seriously, that's my boyfriend. Like, and now I'm not living in Cuernavaca anymore. Guess where I'm living? I'm living in Beverly Hills. And you want to know the difference? When people said, where do you live? And I said, Beverly Hills. They said this. Oh. That's what I wanted. I wanted to impress people so badly. And I remember there was like this epic moment when I was on campus, and this girl came up to me, and we were in class together, and she pulls me aside and she says, hey Alexis, I just want you to know, like, God, I would give anything to have your life. Like, you're perfect. And I remember kind of awkwardly smiling and being like, oh, thanks, girl. Appreciate it. And went running back to my dorm room, started bawling. Because in that moment, I felt like such a fraud. And I called my mom. As you will notice, my mom is the coolest woman I know. She's my best friend in the whole world. And I called my mom and I said, Mama, I don't understand. Aren't I supposed to be happy? Because I feel like I've been lied to. I feel like that checklist that the world tells me matters and is really important isn't at all. And that we as girls are being lied to. Because the scary thing is I actually achieved all of that stuff. The pursuit that girls do thinking that that's what matters. And I said, I don't understand why I'm not happy. And she said, that's because you're living a life of mere consumption, not a contribution. She said that you are going out and you're systematically getting every one of these things that you think you want and you need, and fame, and you're chasing beauty, and you're chasing vanity, and you're chasing impressive professional accolades and bullet points. But in what way are you giving? In what way are you making your life about other people? In what way are you waking up every day saying, what are my talents and what are my strengths and what do I have that I could pour out to people, that I could love people back to life? Where is that happening? Because that is the reservoir of happiness, of joy, of contentment. Not in this mere consumption. So this changed my life forever. It was the first time I'd ever been so humbled and humiliated in my entire life that these atrocities were going on with women around the world. Acid burning in Iran, legal practice, it's normal. Child marriage in Ethiopia. That these grown men were selling off their daughters at 5 and 6 years old, and that's legal. They like on fire for something. For the first time in my life, that there was something I wanted to fight for. And I remember thinking, if I could wake up every single day and fight for these girls around the world, not just around the world, here, and not just here, things that don't matter. Shoes and clothes and boys and movies and gossip and what you did or didn't do with your hair that night and how it turned out. Right? All these things. And what if once a week we had conversations about things that did? Would you come? Would you be interested? That first meeting, those 6 girls showed up. We talked about things that mattered. We talked about our sisters in countries around the world, and we talked about each other. We talked about what we were really going through. Not like everything's fine. Like I'm really struggling, I feel insecure right now, and I chronically feel fat. I don't really know why, but every time I eat a cookie, I wonder what part of my body it's going to. Bizarre phenomenon. And we talked about abuse that some of the girls were dealing with, and none of us even knew that they were dealing with this or had dealt with this. 6 weeks later, we had 347 girls showing up. I don't even know where they heard about this. And it transcended stereotypes. This wasn't just sorority girls. This was sorority girls, and this was athletes, and this was academic-driven girls. And this was goth girls. Right? I mean, it was everything in between. And what was interesting was that we need this so much. I had no idea how much we needed each other. And it was right about then that like my wheels started turning. I was like, I care about girls. That's a weird thing to say. I do, I care. All of a sudden I had this thing, this heart, this passion of wanting to do something that was bigger than me. Wanting to fight for something that was bigger than me. And as I started thinking more about it, I had this huge influence because of the entertainment industry. And I tell people that the entertainment industry doesn't necessarily tell us what to think, but it certainly tells us what to think about. Right? It's constructing the conversations that we're having today. So for me, it was like media is so powerful. I'm going to get into stats in a second, but do you know that we're consuming up to 10 hours of media a day? Between Facebook and Twitter and the internet and TV and movies and radio, like you name it, 10 hours a day, which is only second to school and sleeping. If you want to start looking at the mechanism that is the #1 influence on our paradigm today, it's media. So as my brain is working, right, and I was like, I'm passionate about girls and women, I want to make a difference, and I want to use media as a vehicle to do it. And so I'm calling, and their assistants are picking up, and I'm like, yeah, my name's Alexis Jones, and kind of trying to change the world for girls. We're just curious if, Whitney had some time for me, would love to interview her for 10 to 15 minutes. Every single woman met with me. And not for 10 to 15 minutes. No woman sat down with me for less than an hour and a half. And the bizarre thing about it is I remember walking into Whitney and I was like, oh my God, you're on like Forbes lists and you're like so busy. And she was like, you know what's crazy? Nobody ever asks. I would love to meet with more people like you. Like, it's so flattering to have like a young person come in and be like, you're amazing. She was like, who doesn't want to hang out in that meeting? What was this idea of like the bravado just to be like, why not me? Right? Marianne Williamson, why not me? I don't know. So before you know it, I'm back in grad school, doing communication business masters, and every single ounce of research of whatever paper I was doing, everything was driven towards this idea of wanting to create something that didn't yet exist, which is terrifying. Because if something doesn't exist, it means it's uncharted territory. It means that there is no roadmap, there is no template to go where I want to go. It's much more easy to take a traditional route. And yet, it's not what stoked my fire, right? And I'm like calling in favors from people, and I worked, the red carpet for 3 years, transitioned, worked at Fox Sports, worked at ESPN, which basically, you dudes get it, like every guy in LA OD'd big time, so I come up with like the best sporting events tickets for years. So now it's like phone calls come in, and I'm like, yo, Steve, where's Mark Burnett's secret production company? And of course, his response, Jones, I can't tell you that. So like, I would get fired. And I was like, no, dude, I won't tell anyone who gave it to me, obviously. So, just to let his sister know. And he was like, no, I can't. And I was like, that's funny, because I remember OSU and USC field passes, bro. And he was like, oh, okay. It's so funny when guys get busted, because he was like, okay, busted. I was like, yeah, Keanu Reeves, so can I get it or not? And so he sends over this address, and before you know it, I'm like in the car, don't even have a second to think, right? I get in the car, I make a video that day, I show up, and it's huge, like gate cemented, like no address, that's how cool they are, they don't want you to know where they are. And I walk up and I hit the little call box button. Immediately this girl voice is like, hello? And I was like, ah. It's amazing how you like panic in 0.2 seconds. And I was like, yeah, hi. Your voice goes up 9 octaves like you're 13 again. And I was like, yeah, no, I'm here for it. They're like, yeah, what are you doing here? And I was like, no, I know. Funny, you asked again, because I'm still here to meet with Cecilia. I've never even met Cecilia in my whole life. And as soon as it comes out of my mouth, you know when you're like, no! You're like trying to pull it back, and I was like, maybe Lauren or Sarah, or like someone who might actually be there. Cecilia? So of course he responds, Cecilia? And I'm like, yeah, no, I think that's her name. I'm not exactly sure her name. He's like, yeah, wait 1 sec. Shut up! There's a chick here named Cecilia. Like, I'm thinking in my head, like, this is probably a vampire compound, and like, it's not even the right place. I'm gonna come in and do blood or like something. Like, this isn't right. So I go walking in behind the front desk. She's like, oh, honey, my name is Cynthia. It happens all the time. Of course, absolutely. So, hey, Cynthia. So we start chatting. She's like, so what are you doing here? And I said, oh, I'm here for Survivor for the, and she interrupts. She goes, oh, you're one of the 48 finalists. They just flew in for the final interview. Yes, yeah, I totally am. So that was weird that you knew that. That's weird. She's like, but your name's not on the list. And I was like, I don't know why not. I'm obviously one of the 48 finalists. So she's like, oh, don't worry, honey, I'm just going to send you right in. I was like, oh, okay, great. So she sends me in to the room with Mark Burnett and 6 executive producers. I said at the beginning that when you fight for something bigger than yourself, you're forced to die your ego every single day. A lot of people say that they don't want to do something because they're scared. No, you're not. You're prideful. And that's a distinction that's important to make. Because had I listened to my ego telling me that this was the most ridiculous thing I'd ever thought of, that I was about to walk into a room, a pool of sharks, I would have never done it. I would have stopped like way back when this was like a ridiculous idea sitting in my teacher's office hours. So all of a sudden I had this opportunity, and in my gut, the thing that like drives you of insecurity that creeps in and is like, you're crazy. You're going to get